Welcome to A Dark Path, a podcast exploring the depths of witchcraft, magic, the occult, and all things mysterious. Join us on this journey into the unknown, down a dark path overgrown. Find spells and rituals, folklore and legends. Come, set your candles alight to clear your mind and unwind. Delve into the shadows to uncover a dark path. Hail and welcome to A Dark Path, a podcast exploring the depths of witchcraft, magic, the occult, and all things mysterious. I'm your host, Allyson Hemma-Romane.
I'm your demi-permanent host, Heidi Stock.
And I'm your host, Kristen Jackson. Today's episode is a continuation of our Sabbat series, Lughnasadh.
Half-quarter sunflowers, burning bright and golden, the smell of mint and meadow sweet in the summer's heat, first fruits, dance and play, sacrifice the bull. Summer wheat, summer grain, summer corn, and summer rain. I use my hands to work the dough, braiding back and forth like so. Walk sunwise round the holy well. That's my poem.
It's not as sexy as last poem. So how to say Lughnasadh? So it is spelt crazy weird. It's Lughnasadh. So it looks to me nothing like it sounds. So it is pronounced Lughnasadh. The etymology of the name Lughnasadh originates from the Irish god Lugh and the word nasa, meaning assembly or festival. Therefore, Lughnasadh is literally translated to the assembly of Lugh or Lugh's festival. Some people also call this time Lammas. Lammas is a Saxon word of the traditional Christian festival, meaning Loafmas. So do we personally call it Lughnasadh? Why or why not?
I call it Lammas a lot of times, but only because it's really easy. And the Nasa is hard for me.
So I always called it, I didn't call it anything at first because this is one of the holidays where I kind of like one of the Sabbats that I kind of forget about. I don't know if it's just not that important to me or if it's just like the time of year I'm so crazy and like doing stuff. I don't know. But then the first time that I really actually learned about it was with Wicca and Lammas. So that's what I originally called it. But now I like Lammas less than I did back then. And now I'm kind of leaning more towards Lughnasadh as I continue to go through my path.
So I see the D in there and I have to say it. I have to say Lughnasadh with the H sound at the end. Lughnasadh, because that to me is how it is said. Why would we have a consonant there? Like we never have silent D's. Heidi's trying to like stifling laughs. We never have silent D's in English. That makes no sense. And I know that it's a Gaelic word, allegedly. That is meant to have a place in that word. It deserves airtime. I didn't know. I thought it was just an Irish holiday, which do foreshadowing, right? But Lula Gifts is the sun god in Wales, and so I didn't realize that they also may have celebrated this holiday, which is why I only recently started celebrating it. So, yeah. But I still decide to say that, the D. I feel like it has weight. It's important.
I like that it's a decision you've made, regardless.
I will forever say this word wrong, and I'm sure I don't care. It can't be
Allyson,
Lughnasadh.
come for me. This D is the hill I'll die on.
I choose a lot of really weird hills to die on. This is one of them. This is
This D. I just like saying that.
Gaelic Lughnasadh
D.
Hill.
Okay, guys. What is Lughnasadh? It is the half-quarter Sabbat, one of the 4 Gaelic seasonal festivals, along with Samhain, Imbolc, and Beltane. Marking the beginning of the harvest season, traditionally celebrated around August 1st. It's a celebration of the first fruits and grains, particularly wheat and barley, and a time to give thanks for the abundance of the land. It marks the passing of summer into autumn as well. Who celebrated it and why? Historically observed by the Gaels, an ethno-linguistic group primarily associated with Ireland, Scotland, and the Isle of Man. It dates from 1st or 2nd century AD in Irish mythology. Lughnasadh is said to have had been founded by the god Lugh as a funeral feast and an athletic competition, funeral games, to commemorate the death of an earth goddess and his foster mother, Tailtiue, Tailtiue. So maybe Tail Tui or Tu. Sorry, everyone. I would love to know how to say that. Please comment how to pronounce that accurately. I would love that
I'm
for
gonna leave all
me.
of your attempts in there.
I did try a couple. I did try a couple. That was genuinely me trying some different emphasis. So go, Heidi.
I think
Okay.
Kristen's gonna look it up.
Thank you. You're very nice to me. She died August 1st of exhaustion after clearing the plains of Brega for farming.
Cultural variations. I think we should start with Heidi and the Irish because that's where this comes from.
Let me get there one moment. So for the Irish, summer games that kings would attend, and a truce was named that day, according to medieval literature. It was similar to the ancient Olympic Games and included ritual athletic and sporting contests, horse racing, music and storytelling, trading, proclaiming laws, and settling disputes, drawing up contracts, and matchmaking. Young couples entered into trial marriages by joining hands through a hole in a wooden door. The trial marriage lasted a year and a day, at which time it could be made permanent or broken without consequence. There was also a food market, a livestock market, and a market for foreign traders. The festival itself included a solemn cutting of the first corn, of which an offering would be made to the deity by bringing it up to a high place and burying it. A meal of new food and of bilberries, of which everyone must partake. A sacrifice of a sacred bull and a feast of the bull that was sacrificed, with some ceremony involving its hide and replacement by a young bull. A ritual dance play, perhaps a telling of a struggle for a goddess in a ritual fight. An installation of a carved stone head atop the hill, and a triumphing over it by an actor impersonating Lugh. Another play representing the confinement by Lugh of the monster blight or famine. A 3-day celebration presided over by a brilliant young god, Lugh, or his human representative. Finally, a ceremony indicating that the interregnum was over and the chief god was in his right place again.
The Irish festival has an equivalent in Welsh called Gwyl Ost, but the themes of the Irish festival are closest to Gathering Day, which we just had, if you'll all recall, for Midsummer. The Druids went out and gathered herbs and shit, right? That's Gathering Day. Let's talk about Gwyl Ost, since we've already talked about Gathering Day. Things were kind of the same, except there was more of like a shepherd's feast to celebrate cowherders and shepherds rather than farmers. In the farmlands, harvest was marked with the medieval tradition of a reaping party, in which the entire community would work together to bring in the yield and then exchange shares of bounty. And culturally, this was a thing that occurred. They also did feasting with music and games and dancing and stuff. Most of the games were derived from old fertility rites and were for adults only. One game, such as Rebo, was played with 6 men linking hands and then tossing couples up into the air. Another tradition was called An Hour in the Hay, in which anyone who wanders into a hay field was fair game. They could be taken captive by the opposite sex, tied up with hay, and then released after a favor was granted. The custom of the harvest mare appears here again. I have a feeling I haven't done any research on the rest of the Sabbats, but I have a feeling it'll occur for most of the harvest ones, in which they were cutting grain, and whoever did the last cut would make a ritual by bringing it into their house and trying to hang it on the wall without it getting wet or discovered. If it was wet or discovered, then they would be forced to sit at the foot of the table in disgrace and mocked until the next festival. If he succeeded, he got all the beer that he could drink. In a region of Wales It was like more of a pilgrimage time, so that wasn't across Wales. That was just kind of isolated to Brecknockshire. But those people would do a pilgrimage to a lake called Little Van Lake, where they would watch for the Lady of the Lake and perhaps carry home flasks of water for healing.
So, segueing into Norse mythology here, like my little segue. It's crucial to understand that the Wheel of the Year, which includes Lunasa, is primarily a modern construct influenced by Celtic and Wiccan traditions. The historical Norse pagan calendar was different, with the year being split into two, winter and summer, with three main festivals: Winter Nights in October, Yule, Midwinter, and Sigurblot in April. There's not a traditional or clearly documented Norse version of Lunasa. However, there would likely have been overlap in these traditions during harvest time due to the importance of the harvest as well as common trade between the areas during this time. While there is very little to no documentation on a Norse festival held at the same time and widely celebrated, there were alternative harvest festivals. American Asutru created a holiday called Freyfaxi that celebrated the harvest. There's also Freyr Feast or Fairblot, in which they celebrated the harvest, as well as the Norse god Freyr. They ate bread in the shape of Freyr's phallic, yes, his pee-pee, and they made those and they ate them, and that was how they celebrated it. This is a celebration to honor the god Freyr, who is the brother of Freya. The Freyr is the god of fertility, harvest, prosperity, and peace. One thing to take note is that this wasn't necessarily held at the exact same time as Lunasa. It could be held earlier, later, anytime that there was a harvest. Historically, there were harvest-related traditions. The first harvest, while not specifically a holiday, Norse pagans would have celebrated the first harvest in some form. This aligns with the timing and agricultural focus of Lunasa. There were horse races and feasts. Some sources mention that Norse people held horse races and feasts to honor Freyr around this time of year. Norse pagans had traditions such as binding three stalks of first grains into a sheaf as an amulet or fortune, or you could leave some in the field for Odin's horse Sleipnir.
So the key difference is, it seems, between the Irish and the Welsh versions are no sacrificing of a bull, although maybe that took place. I don't know. And then there was no like Olympic-esque game that brought like peacetime treaties and truces and whatnot. I feel like the Irish like really, really said, let's make a day where we do all the legal stuff and just like get that out of the way.
And
They
drink
don't handle the
and hold hands.
divorces until the next day because everybody's married for a year in one day.
Right.
Not today, last year's people.
And then obviously the difference in the focus on shepherding and ranching, like cattle herding, right? And shepherding is sheep, Kristen. I see you slowly nodding. Shepherding and cattle herding instead of like necessarily crop, though they had that too. And then I enjoy seeing this kind of reversed because a lot of the festivals we've talked about had very many commonalities with Norse traditions. And it kind of feels like it's backwards this time around. It's really just because of the lack of historical data, which is infuriating but also fascinating.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
interesting how like one is specifically culturally like it is Lughnasadh for Lugh. Like there's the whole story behind it. And then there's just like, oh yeah, we celebrate the harvest whenever we feel like it.
I was reading that Norse holidays coincided more with moon cycles rather than sun cycles, which would be a huge explanation for why that isn't occurring here because it's a half quarter based off solar events. So they probably had something that coincided with a harvest moon of some sort, right? But we just don't have the proof of that. Also, how metal and how witchy.
Yeah.
I find it very sailor-y,
Oh, yeah, that's true.
right? Because they navigate by stars, they have to know the tides, so they need to be aware of the moon cycle. That feels very culturally appropriate.
I don't know. This is, like I said at the beginning, this is one of the ones that I really kind of don't care about. And I know that that sounds mean and terrible, but I'm like, okay, cool, harvest. It's still hot as fuck. There's another one coming in a month. So to me, I'm just kind of like, it makes sense as to why maybe not everyone celebrated it exactly the same or similar like some of the other Sabbats have. On our trek down a dark path, we reached a hollow in the woods. It seems it's time to catch our breath. A Dark Path is brought to you by
Needing guidance on your dark path? Explore the mysterious world of Jupiter's Omens, offering handmade rituals, spells, and tools to focus your intention during spell work, vintage altar tools and decor, and intuitive tarot sessions utilizing claircognizance. Visit Jupiter's Omens, where the mystical and macabre meet, at jupitersomens.square.site. That's jupitersomens.square.site. Light the way on your dark path with Wise Wolf Craft's unique selection of tools for living with intention. From manifestation kits to altar items and divination tools, we have everything you need to connect with your inner wisdom. Wise Wolf Craft offers Reiki and other energy healing sessions, divination readings, and a variety of classes on topics like intuitive tarot and personalized spell work. Unleash the power within. Visit Wise Wolf Craft today online at wisewolfcraft.com and on Facebook and Instagram as @WiseWolfCraft. Wise Wolfcraft, tools for living with intention.
So, what are some of the themes, symbolisms, colors, and just fancy fun stuff for this Sabbath? Themes include harvest and abundance, gratitude, community, and transition. Symbolism include grain, corn, loaves of bread, pentacles, sickles or scythes, and sunflowers. Colors are green, yellow and gold, orange, and light browns. Herbs include calendula or calendula, depending on who you are and how you say it, mint and meadowsweet. Crystals like green aventurine, citrine, and red calcite. Incense like frankincense, benzoin, bergamot, sandalwood, and patchouli. Foods including corn, wheat, fresh baked bread, summer fruits, early autumn vegetables, basically anything that's in season and lots of it. So, things that you can do for your altar, you can set some grains, fruits, or flowers out, images of the sun, any offerings of fresh produce, dried mint, or dried calendula. Calendula. How do you say that? Everybody says it differently.
I say calendula, but
Vegetables.
I love that you say calendula.
I go back and forth.
Calendula. Calendula.
Marigold.
Is there anything we'd like to add to the list?
Sunflowers, I feel like would be fun. It's on the list, but it's not on the list of the altar setup, right? It's like sunflowers, I feel like would be really fun. But you could also just do sunflower seeds if you're like me. I can't put fresh flowers out because your cats will eat them. If you work with a deity like Artio or who are the Norse ones, Freyr and Freya of like fertility and abundance and stuff, you could leave offerings to any specific deities in that realm, not necessarily Lu.
I don't know, not so again, so not nothing new. So like continue to do things like the besoms, right? Like continuing to do like the naturey craft things. We do a lot of like pine cone, this and that, and all whatever we can find on the ground this time of year, turning it into crafts because I have small kids who just say all the time. And that a lot of that kind of stuff ends up on my altar this time of year. That's all been going on since it started coming.
Speaking
So
of
it
starting
feels like
coming, Kristen, I think you should put your green dick on your altar for Lughnasadh this year.
oh
It's
my God.
adventuring, isn't
Totally
it?
adventuring.
Oh!
Queen of Segway strikes again.
Whoa,
Jesus.
that's kind of weird because that's part of that's what we had found in the Norse celebration too, was that it was like making food in the shape of his PP and then eating it, but you could like have a representation of his PP on your altar in
So
green
here's my
aventurine.
question.
Holy shit.
In all seriousness, should we be giving head more this time of year? Yes or no?
Part of the festival games?
Should we, with no explanation, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Honestly? Well, okay, no explanation. No.
I love
Oh!
Mm.
I want to explain so bad.
Ritual suggestions, connecting with nature. So, like hiking, visiting farms and farm stands, supporting like local farmers. Local farmers. I was looking for a different word, but the word is farmers. Introspection and reflection regarding your connection with the earth and the food that you eat, where it comes from, all that jazz. Community gatherings, such as markets, farmers markets, where you can support local artisans of all kinds, sharing meals with friends, family, or just in your community. And then also honoring Lu or whatever sun god or abundance god, I say god, whatever sun deity or abundance deity you work with. For Lu specifically, if that's the path you wish to choose, things like crafting, so writing a poem, a song, or a story, studying healing arts like Reiki massage, or taking a CPR class, baking bread, spending time in the sun, offering fresh produce, walking around a well clockwise while praying for health, berry picking, any kind of berry, honoring your mentors, or getting married.
I like how you touched on the creativity because I feel like that is a specific thing for not necessarily just for Lou, but it's like a god of like creativity and arts and written word, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
And being able to like delve kind of into if even if it's not this particular deity or even like an ancestor of yours that was very creative and just kind of like adding those little individual special things is kind of fun.
Something to do with this. Oh, you know what I think is a good ritual this time of year is stuff with your own garden. Like you're already kind of doing like what the original harvest festivals were about, right? Which is like taking the stuff out of your garden. But like if you take your first wheat and do some of those old school things that they were doing in the old festivals, use that as your offering. Or if you don't grow wheat, because lots of people don't, any kind of grass that you do grow, an herb that you grow. I think it's also cool. You could make, if you made a basket earlier this year at one of your festivals, you could like use that basket, make like a whole process. Um, I like to make everything special that I use for stuff. So like getting a special pair of shears that you use and getting a special cloth and a special basket and special gloves, you can do whatever to elevate your garden practice.
I remember this time of year was often the time growing up where we would hay bale. And so that's kind of what I always remember as being the thing is like, okay, it's time to go. And I was so allergic, so I just like drove the tractor, which was fun. So I drove the tractor and my family would huck the thing up onto the hay bales up onto the back of the tractor and the little, what's that called? Flatbed. And then we'd just like roam around and get. So that's really the only thing about this season that I kind of think of is like everything's it's not dying quite yet, but I think of like how the hay is finally drying out and now it's time that you can finally get it. And it's that weird transition between the abundance and prosperity of the harvest of summer and moving into the abundance and prosperity of the harvest of the final harvest before winter.
that's a really cool thing to mention, hay baling, because it's not something like I wouldn't
Like
think of
getting
that, even though I come from a farming community. Like I wouldn't have thought of that. That's really cool. Thank you.
Me trying to get away from my roots and being like, oh yeah, remember that time when I hay baled every summer?
Okay, so for spell work and crafting suggestions, this is more just like areas of focus in my mind, but focus your craft and your spell work around things like abundance, change and transition, gratitude. A couple others off the hip here would be along with change and transition, think about like new beginnings, right? That's also an abundance thing. That's also, and I know like we're talking about, we're not quite at the new beginnings phase, but reaping is a new process. And if you're like, say in a multi-stage project and you're starting a new part of the project, I feel like that would fit this season very well. Does that make sense to you guys? Because it's like, does that track with you and Allie or Kristen?
Yes.
Right? Because it's like it's not it's definitely a new feel for the season and there's a newness to it, but it's like enhancing. You know what? Now that I'm saying it out loud, it almost feels like it's strange because a lot of times you celebrate abundance and you think of things like the full moon, but this almost feels like a waning moon.
Oh yeah, but like a waning gibbous.
Okay, that was fun, guys. Thanks. All right. The other thing I would throw out here too, going back again to some of the roots around the traditional holiday. I think that you could probably use this time too to like connect with your ancestors or with deceased loved ones, just considering the original nature of the events focused on funeral stuff as well. And so I don't see why you couldn't draw on that energy also if that was something that you felt like you wanted to do. Now, I think a lot of us are going to be like, well, Samhain's right around the corner. And there's a couple other times that you might think of as more auspicious. But I do think sometimes timing is important. And so this would be just another opportunity. Anything else you guys want to add?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, you know it's coming. Death. So like going back to the roots of the traditional Irish festival, traditional Gaelic festival, excuse me. It's a celebration of the day that Lou's adopted mother from a warring tribe died. So, like, channeling that energy. So, however you want to do that, I personally would use my ancestor jar and add that to my spellwork situations, and kind of like honor the struggle that, what's her face? How did you say that? Kristen put it in the chat. Tell to you. I think that would be a good move for this day. A rockin' move, dare I say. What about you, Kristen?
Things to do during this time. I personally would lean more onto baking and weaving. Some people weave bread, which kind of can bring the two together. And whether it's setting up some kind of not work spell or if you're creating if you're creating something to, I mean, gosh, you could just weaving and not work, and it's just constantly in my brain. Like, this is the time to do it. And if you're going to do it at any point in the year, like, do it during this time if you can't do it any other time.
Did we talk
Art?
about bread? Like, did we talk about baking and shit, guys? Because I feel
Yeah.
like okay, so like
Dallas,
what should people make?
bread.
Bread, dog.
What kind of
Anything
bread?
with wheat, grains, anything. It could
Golden
be
bread.
a loaf of bread, a flatbread, some little like rolls. Come
Simple.
on.
Simple. Make whatever
Yeah.
you want. Make fruit bread. Doesn't
Did you say
matter.
fruit bread?
You could make fruit bread.
I
It
like
looks so
cornbread.
cute. It's one of those things that's like weirdly simple and very satisfying.
Corn is for Lunasa as well.
Right?
So cornbread.
I'm talking like cornbread with like little corn nuggets in there. And by corn nuggets, I mean the little, you know, with jalapeno and cheese.
I've heard people like that. I'm a
By the
spiceler, so
way, those are called kernels.
Yeah, not nuggets, they're kernels.
Sorry, Kristen, I
all
didn't
the
mean to
kernel
interrupt you.
nuggets to
I just
yourself.
thought it was really important that the girl who died on a D today knew that that was not a nugget, that it was a kernel.
I'm tired, okay?
I like it. I like tired
Well,
Ellie. There's a whole
is there
mood,
a difference
whole
between
movement.
a nugget of truth and a kernel of truth?
You blew my mind. Maybe I'm giving you shit and a nugget is a kernel.
No, because then they would be called chicken kernels.
Maybe they are
I
somewhere.
want
Maybe
chicken
if you
kernels.
look on, like, if you looked up the anatomy of a corn, they'd be like, these are the kernels.
Corn.
AKA
This is the corn bone.
nugget.
This is the corn nugget.
The meat of the corn, first you must peel off its skin.
Have you guys seen that video going around of those guys figuring out how coconut milk gets inside the coconut?
Okay, wait.
What?
I keep trying to come up with more ideas for spell work and crafts.
I'll link the video.
We keep getting more and more derailed
Have you heard about the coconuts?
with the milk.
Braid that bread, kids.
There's a theme of healing, right? Lou's a god of healing. So like why not make little healing spell jars for people and or yourself, right? Things that you can have and I was gonna say sleep under your pillow, but you tuck it in your pillow or tuck it on your nightstand, you know? We also there's like pentacles and scythes and sickles, but we haven't really mentioned anything about them. So you could probably do like a cord cutting ritual, or that would be a ritual, but it's a spell.
Both?
You could
Spells
do a
are in
cord cutting
rituals. Rituals are in spells.
because it's a transitional time. It's marking a transition, right? I say go for it. Do a cord cutting. Probably something for like money manifestation. Kristen is steepling her hands like a very sexy romance novel man. So it's
Oh
her turn.
yes. I just keep thinking like this is another sexy holiday, right? Like fertility. That alone could be your spell. Let's do some more sex magic.
And you know what? I didn't mention it at the altar, but I have a bullhorn, like a cattle horn. That should go on your altar. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I mention it literally every single other fucking Sabbat. This one, when it's actually relevant, I'm like, whoo,
Which reminds me, I have a cowbell.
yeah, put
That's
that
another.
shit on your altar.
More cowbell.
It's really pretty. It's all Swedish.
Have it present when you do your spell work would also be a ballin' idea. How would we
Isabel.
replace it would be a bellin' idea. How would we replace the idea of sacrificing a bull? Would it just be
Well,
having the stuff
eat
present?
a steak.
Eat a steak?
If you're like totally no milk, no cow, like no animal product, make one out of mashed potatoes.
My favorite steak alternative is cauliflower steak. You
Oh,
take
that's
like a
bomb.
head,
See, a steak alternative. Perfect.
you cut a head of cauliflower into like 1 inch slices and it looks like brains. It's so cool.
Like if you don't eat meat, you don't have to necessarily put out like a bull's carcass or like a piece of steak or something like that. You could even do just like little like effigies, like little statues of bulls or, things like that too.
I want a bull statue so bad.
All the tourist stuff that we have,
Duh.
bull effigy. Just put myself on the altar.
I'm a silly goose today. What do the three of us do for Lughnasadh?
I do absolutely nothing because I constantly forget that it's even an option.
Same Z's, but now I'm gonna do something because it's an excuse to wave my horn around.
I feel like you guys, don't we all do one thing kind of the same?
What is that?
We go to the P&W Witches Market,
Oh,
right?
Heidi.
So true.
Yeah,
Oh
I
my
was like, I
gosh.
was like, I feel like that's something we do to celebrate. We've done that at least 2 years, right?
That's true.
I feel like since we do it so
Kristen's like,
much,
yeah,
we forget it's
I
part of the celebration, but it totally is part of the celebration. That's something I really enjoy too, actually. It's one of the only things I'll for sure do for Lunasa. I mean, otherwise I might eat a piece of bread and be like, bully. You know?
have.
Ate a muffin. Does that count?
Yeah. I mean, it's not like I wouldn't celebrate it. It is, but I do tend to focus more on the other set of them.
Mhm.
The solstice and the equinox and you know, those things.
Yeah, I feel like the half quarters are more so about pulling you back into your relationship with the earth.
That feels right. Like it's definitely like you have these big giant holidays, these big giant sabbats that are just like so well known for whatever reason. But it is kind of like this grounding in between where it's like, okay, yeah, don't forget that season's still turning, things are still growing, things are still dying, things are still like cyclical. Yeah.
I also feel like it might be a good reframe, like if I was like, oh, I want to celebrate these holidays, but I forget about them or I don't, like we are kind of talking about right now. It might be interesting to try to reframe it as like a catalyst for in between the big holidays that you're used to celebrating, or something to give you a little momentum in between things, or a good excuse to hit up the witches and hang out.
Or alternatively, a good excuse to take a fucking break because we're all exhausted all of the
Okay.
time. Capitalism, man. But like, this is an excuse to kind of kick it and reconnect with something real. We hope today's episode got you curious and inspired. Thank you so much for listening to us ramble and have fun today. We appreciate you. I'm Allyson Hemma-Romane, and you can find me on Instagram at Jupiter's Omens. You can follow the show on Instagram and Facebook at A Dark Path Podcast for all kinds of shenanigans.
I'm Heidi Stock, and you can find me on social media at Wise Wolfcraft. You can also find us on Patreon at patreon.com/adarkpath.
I am Kristen Jackson, and you can find me on Instagram at Auntie's Artistry. If you have any questions for the show, we'd love to hear from you at adarkpathpodcast@gmail.com. Join us next time on this journey down a dark path. May your candles burn bright, and if you hear footsteps, don't worry. It's probably just us.
It is now that our time together must come to an end. Thank you for joining us on this journey, a dark path come to a bend. Find us here bi-monthly on your favorite place to stream, and follow us on social media for news in between. A dark path is there, winding and waiting ever. May you craft peace, knowledge, and alignment, so shall it be, or something better.